Folks need to get ready for this. I'm not interested in gloating at all. And I'm someone who said from the beginning, I mean, I don't know, people, I don't know why people convinced themselves that Biden wasn't going to be a thing. He was obviously always going to be a thing. It was a Sanders-Biden race. In a general election, this guy is not the guy he was in 2016. This is somebody who I legitimately am wondering. I think they might have shot him up with something for that last debate with Bernie. He was by far more coherent than he's been in like a year.
Watching that, I was like, I'll have what he's having.
And maybe you don't want to have what he was having, because I think
Chinese research chemical.
The peak of that debate has been followed by an even sharper decline than the already sharp decline that we were seeing before. And guys, again, like a lot of clips with Tucker Carlson, I'm not interested in this is a clinic. Part of politics is objective. And if you didn't see this coming, and if they don't have a plan for responding to this, it's going to be a big, 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 big problem. This is Tucker Carlson talking about Joe Biden.
Underneath it all, he was a party man to the core, always sad. All of which means Joe Biden is now the presumptive Democratic nominee. Nobody really chose Biden for this job. He wound up in it by a series of defaults, and it shows. Ask yourself, is Joe Biden ready to lead this country? Could he find his car in a 3-tiered parking garage? Could he navigate a salad bar? And by the way, what exactly is his position on the coronavirus pandemic? Those are the mysteries Democrats now face. Biden has been virtually invisible for the last month. That's not an accident. Joe Biden on camera means more moments like this.
We cannot let this. We've never allowed any crisis from the Civil War straight through to the pandemic of 17, all the way around 16. We have never let our democracy take second fiddle. We can both have a democracy and elections and at the same time correct the public health.
You follow that? Correct the public health. It's hard to imagine a man like that making it through a presidential debate or even staying awake through the inaugural proceedings. It seems likely that at some point Democratic leaders will try to find a way to replace Biden before the November election. Andrew Cuomo is the obvious replacement, but there are many others. Whatever happens, it's worth taking Joe Biden seriously for this moment, now that he is officially, in a sense.
There it is. It's not even worth complaining about. And it's not worth talking about how horrible Tucker is and blah, 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 blah. We all know all this stuff. This is it. What is the plan to deal with that? Honestly, it's very totally undemocratic and deeply, and Andrew Cuomo is a monstrosity who is cutting Medicaid as this happens. But I would be shocked, and I've been thinking for several weeks, that as soon as they had officially forced had Bernie out, I would be shocked if they're not thinking of a pinch hitter here.
They're probably considering their options. I mean, we know that they know that Biden is not a very strong candidate and he has a lot of issues, but their hand was forced because they needed to get rid of Bernie, and Biden was the vehicle to do that. And honestly, Biden might still be the strongest vehicle that the establishment has to put up against Trump right now. I still think he's going to lose.
I have no idea what's going to happen. I think if the election were held today, he would certainly lose. But I think the trajectory we're on,
we're in for a brutal trajectory.
It's going to hit a certain point where anybody, the incumbent is going to get punished. But regardless, I think that, I would be shocked if there isn't conversations about Cuomo and Newsom right now. Shocking to me to be in a situation where I'm like genuinely strongly preferring a Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird.
That's how bleak our politics are.
It's weird. Tucker lets Obama and the DNC off by saying Biden happened to get there just by a series of defaults. Like, he's basically the only one that they could have lined up behind that could stop Bernie, and they chose to do that. And and that's why we're here now.
Well, he was the default option for that.
I guess. Yeah. But I mean,
it'll also.
But the people made a decision, I guess is what I'm saying. There was agency. They could have lined up behind Bernie if they thought that they really wanted to win the general election with a candidate that was, coherent.
Well, that was never going to happen.
Of course.
But they care. I've said this before. They care more about stopping Bernie Sanders in any left challenge than they care about beating Trump. Because if the Democrat loses to Trump, all of those people at the DNC are still going to have jobs, right? And in fact, they can raise funds off of it because Trump is so bad. It benefits establishment Democrats because people just want safety. But if Bernie had won and if he had become president, he would have been the new leader of the party and he would have cleaned house.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's no doubt that there's plenty of people who are totally fine with, absolutely. Have another year, another 4 years of, oh my God, Donald Trump said this. Oh my God, Donald Trump said that. I think this is actually another reason why it's really important to get much more. And I regret, I think, we need to get a lot more precise about the authoritarianism stuff, because it's been used so broadly that it's obscured where there are serious authoritarian trends to turn. You know what? If Donald Trump gets another 4 years, people are still going to be able to go on MSNBC and CNN and call him a poopy head. That is not going to stop. We are not in a situation. I would be shocked, because I could be wrong. That's not where we are in our trajectory. People who have corporate news platforms and whatever else who make kind of narrow partisan complaints are still going to be able to do that. Maybe even at times substantive complaints. The trajectory that's profoundly dangerous is obviously with regards to the terrorism of ICE and migrant and refugee communities as a rights crisis that has broader implications on policing structures and things like that. Then there's also, and it's barely been covered at all, much props to Ari Melber for doing a good segment on it with, I forget her name, but I believe she's a former prosecutor. She covered it very well. So always credit where credit is due. MSNBC did one segment on the DOJ request from Bill Barr to hold people, to give judges the capacity to hold people in indefinite detention, essentially doing away with habeas corpus in times of emergency. Jeez. This is extraordinarily dangerous stuff. And again, we have to fit it in context. The Patriot Act was pushed through by the Bush administration. I believe Russ Feingold was the singular vote in the United States Senate against it at the time. I think Bernie voted against it in the House, and Barbara Lee and some others, but it was overwhelmingly passed. I think Ron Paul voted against it, I'm sure. So, and of course, we see the Assange prosecution. So there is a trajectory along with, of course, all the corporate surveillance we talked about, Rob Larson, of seriously rolling back civil liberties, violating privacy and rights, which is urgent and terrifying and a major issue. But it's not this sort of generic, oh yeah, like Donald Trump. I mean, he's going to get he's in the second term, he's just going to become El Duce. I think that that's actually problematic because it obscures how much, in fact, they have done to undermine democracy and will do in a second term. But it also lets off the hook some of the people who will use that kind of rhetoric and justified fear to feed just basically little political operations that honestly won't be that threatened by a Trump second term because they don't really pose any structural challenge. And I agree with Jamie. I think there's plenty of people. I don't think they want Trump to get reelected, but they're not existentially threatened by him getting reelected.
Yeah, it's not their kids that are going to get put in cages.
Indeed. And, look, and let's be honest. I mean, a lot of affluent people that live in blue cities are already, look at the policing techniques of these cities for decades. Look at how things are already stratified and structured, and security states are aimed at certain populations to make other people comfy, along with, gentrification and so on. So, look, yeah, there's plenty of folks that could spend another several years talking about, he's so horrible and yada, yada, yada.
I mean, we're literally the number one.
Need political wins.
Yeah.
Real people need political wins. Sorry, Matt.
Literally the number one prison state in the history of the earth. So
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Just by numbers. So
just by numbers. That is a completely unvarnished statement of fact.